Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan presented his inaugural budget policy address to Parliament this week. Joining us in studio today is Engineering News editor Terence Creamer to provide his analysis of the statement and what it means for business in South Africa. Terence, welcome to the show. There was much discussion ahead of the statement and the speech that the Finance Minister would provide some practical evidence of a policy shift towards the left. In your reading of the statement and the speech, could you find any indications of such a policy shift?
Well, I think there's no obvious shift to the left in the statement, although it's very difficult to define what is left at the moment in the context of a world where a lot of the policy interventions that are taking place, even in places like America, would be considered leftist policies, but they're really being used to sort of bail out enterprises, and they're also being used to stimulate the economy. So the definition is hard, but I think in this policy statement, and in South Africa, if there had been a clear departure from something like inflation targeting, or an obvious sign that taxes were going to rise aggressively or a bigger role for the state in the economy, that would have been a signal of a leftward shift. And I don't think we got a lot of that. There were hints of additional taxes possibly to come to support labour-absorbing industries and maybe environmental taxes. There were hints as well that we might need to do something, have a middle way on inflation targeting and the rand strength. But the only real firm thing that came out was that we're going to liberalise or further liberalise the exchange controls, which is really not something that the left would be desiring, but something that business would be desiring. So no obvious signs of a shift to the left. But then, in the context of a world in recession and a country in recession, we are going to see our budget deficit moving from sort of 1% of GDP last year to 7.6% and remaining high for quite a while. We're also seeing that public borrowing is going to rise to 11.8% this year. And we're going to see that our debt to GDP ratio is going to consistently rise, but stay below the sort of 50% level, which in a world where other countries are moving to debt ratios of 100% or more, that's fairly modest.
On the issue of the exchange rate, what did Gordhan announce and how should this be interpreted by business and citizens?
Well, at this stage, I think it's as clear as mud. On the one hand, he's saying that we need a competitive exchange rate and he's erring on the side of a weaker rand. On the other side of the equation, he's saying we need to sustain inflation targeting, which he said has been an important instrument. Now, theoretically, you can't have both. Or I suppose you can, but you can't. If you are going to use reserves, if you're going to buy reserves to weaken the currency, or you're going to use interest rates to weaken the currency, that's going to be inflationary. And if the bank's mandate remains one of keeping inflation under control, that means there's a constraint as to how much you can use the purchases of reserves or an interest rate policy to weaken your currency. So there's a contradictory message coming out. There are those who are saying, you can do both by using, you can mop up the inflationary impact by selling bonds, but there's a cost to that, and we don't know whether we are ready to bear such costs.
What other issues arose that could have implications for businesses in South Africa and potential investors?
Well, I think if there were any shifts to the left or emphasis on the left, there was greater stress given to industrial and trade policy and using those in a way to encourage industrial development and labour-absorbing jobs. There were also suggestions of maybe new taxes, a wage subsidy tax, environmental taxes that might have both revenue benefits as well as environmental benefits in the long run. But I think the main thing was the exchange control liberalisation. That's going to have a big implication for how people can relate to South Africa, as well as how South African businesses can invest, especially in the SADC region, but elsewhere as well. And the other big and immediate one is the signal that was sent out around Eskom. And the signal was that really it's capped. The support that the fiscus is going to give to Eskom is capped at around 60 billion rand, the loan injection, and the 176 billion in government guarantees. And the rest needs to come really from the consumer in the form of sort of more cost-reflective tariffing, which is again more it's more aligned to, I suppose, cost reflectivity is not really what the left was wanting as part of their agenda. They were calling for more fiscal support for Eskom to get us through this period. So again, it's a sign that maybe the medium-term budget policy statement doesn't have that much of a shift to the left as some were anticipating.
Terence, thank you very much. Thank you for watching Second Take. Join us again next week for more news analysis.